Hello again my friends, it's time to break down Bungie's very first podcast. My friend and fellow YouTuber APK has kindly given me permission to upload his detailed analysis video. There's a link to his channel in the description box below and as an annotation in the top left of the video. Make sure you go check him out and show him some love by subscribing. So without further ado, here it is.
Hey guys, it's APK here with a new series called Destiny in Depth. In this episode, I'll be covering the return of the Bungie podcast, which for the first time ever was recorded in the midst of Destiny's development. To start it off, Bungie gave us a ton of bits and pieces about the competitive multiplayer experience, otherwise known as PvP. In the latter half of the podcast, Josh Hamrick was brought on to talk about the sandbox in terms of balance. The first topic he spoke on was in regards to the departure from Halo's 2 weapon system, in which you spawned with a primary and sometimes a secondary weapon and picked up weapons on the map to help fill your 2 slots. Destiny, as you know, will feature a 3 weapon system, but is very different from Halo's in the sense that you will select a primary, special, and heavy weapon, and those choices are a part of your build, which will also include other gameplay elements like abilities. It appears that there will be no weapons on the map, and it was brought up that there was much thought and effort put into figuring out how to get players to move and participate in map control, and their solution was to disperse 3 types of ammo around the map in select locations: primary, special, and heavy ammo. These ammo pickups are not specific to particular individual weapons, they are only specific to the 3 classes of weapons. Speaking of weapons, they brought in a combat sandbox artist who spoke on the artistic and design direction of Destiny's massive sandbox. He initially spoke on the difference between working on a sandbox like Halo's and working on one like Destiny's. It was emphasized that Halo's sandbox was described as having a defined palette. There was a particular polarity between the UNSC and Covenant weapons in that there was an intrinsic feeling of quote-unquote good guy guns and quote-unquote bad guy guns. They went on to talk about the direction of Destiny in comparison. There was a lot of talk about making sure there was a bigger and richer story behind the weapons. Destiny's weapons are said to be very immersive, going in as much detail as varying brands and decals on the weapons, which implies a ton of fiction for players to immerse themselves in. A lot of time was spent talking about your guns telling a story, whether it be your own story or the story of its origination. Next, they talk specifically about the limitations of Halo's weapons due to there only being human military and Covenant military weapons, and the only departure from that being quote-unquote found weapons like the Sentinel Beam. It was then stated that the feeling and sense of mystery to those found weapons in Halo is what the weapon artists and designers were trying to emulate in Destiny. The discussion shifted from big picture to specific weapons. The artist was asked what his favorite weapon was, and he responded with a weapon called the Last Word, which is a weapon we haven't heard about until now. It was said that the weapon draws inspiration from John Ford movies and emulates a frontier survivalist feel and is the hero's weapon. In contrast, the Thorn was brought up, which is said to be the absolute opposite of the Last Word. The Thorn is a revolver hand cannon described as being evil and menacing. Next, they talked about how weapon choice in Destiny is a reflection of player psychology. For example, saying the Gjallarhorn gives off a Guild or Knight feel, the Red Death being for son of a bitch bandits, and the Hardlight, a weapon being mentioned for the first time, giving off a future tech soldier vibe. One interesting bit about the design direction of Destiny was how there is a conscious effort to humanize particular elements throughout the game. This is to prevent players from being alienated while playing, since you are a Guardian traveling and fighting through space. The last and one of the most important pieces of information to come from the podcast was the reassurance that the weapons you have in Destiny will not be a metric of how much you've played. To illustrate this point, it was noted that different guns are earned through different game modes, whether it be PvP multiplayer modes or PvE modes. Now I have one question before I let you guys go. What is one topic you would like to see tackled in the next Bungie podcast? I personally would like to hear them talk about multiplayer map design.
Hello again my friends, hope you enjoyed APK's breakdown of the podcast. If you want to watch high quality Destiny and Halo videos, subscribe to his channel. Simply click the subscribe button to have his awesome vids beamed directly into your feed. Do it! Until next time, Guardians.